Hey now, it's the Deadhead Daddy, and welcome to the very first installment of what I hope becomes mini videos, Groovy Room Stories, where I've been trying to figure out what to do to tell you stories about the Groovy Room, and I finally decided maybe I just need to tell you, about me. And if you see anything in the room that interests you, feel free to ask me about it, comment on it, or if you want a more detailed description of the room, feel free to ask that as well. Okay, today's Groovy Room story is basically how I became a Deadhead, how I discovered the Grateful Dead, and kind of the history behind all of that. So, as much as I'd like to be one of those Deadheads that toured the country and followed Jerry and Bobby and the boys everywhere, and was gone for months at a time, that is not my story. You see, I didn't know anybody. None of my friends, none of my family, no one knew or listened to the Grateful Dead. No one paid any attention. So I had no idea who they were. But then in 1987, while sitting in a friend's living room and MTV was playing just in the background, I heard this song. And I was completely intrigued by the sound, something I had never experienced before, and just completely captivated by the video and these old dudes and skeletons and a crowd of hippies dancing around and excited. That song, of course, would be Touch of Grey. So yes, I am what is called an in-the-dark Deadhead, I guess. But anyways, from that moment on, I was just like, who is this band? So I started digging a little bit deeper. The first album I bought was Skeletons in the Closet on a CD, and wore that out and just listened to it forever. Now, that was only the beginning of my Grateful Dead walk. All right, so we're in 1987, and I was listening to the Grateful Dead. I was listening to Skeletons from the Closet. I wound up purchasing Shakedown Street, Terrapin Station, Blues for Allah shortly after that, and just listened to the heck out of them, much to the chagrin of my friends that were not Deadheads. But at the same time, we are talking the late 80s, early 90s, so I was kind of into hair metal and Pink Floyd and the Doors and all that stuff. So they weren't really like my favorite band. So 1991, I graduated high school, and then in June of 1992, my mother was working at a group home, and one of the teenagers, sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once, one of the teenagers that worked at that group home was a Deadhead, and he had a pair of tickets to go see the Grateful Dead at the Richfield Coliseum. And my mom asked me if I would mind going to the show with him because he had an extra ticket to make sure he didn't get in too much trouble. Now, there were another pair of workers at that group home that also had a pair of tickets, but theirs were not located by ours. Now, I had no idea what to expect, what was going on. One of my very first concerts, and so I was like, sure, I'll go. So then we drove with these guys, and they went up to the nosebleed, and lo and behold, the tickets that my friend had, and my friend Lee had, were third row center on the floor to see the Grateful Dead. And I hadn't really experimented with any substances, so maybe drank a little bit and stuff like that, but I was just consumed in this purple cloud of smoke and all of these crazy looking hippie people dancing around, and this band that like everybody was just consumed by. And I still didn't really understand what I was into until I don't even remember where. And if you guys know details to the show, please include, fill me in. I'd love to know, but because it's been a long time. But excuse me. So at one point Jerry's playing a solo and he kicks up his leg, and my buddy just grabs me by the shoulders, shakes me, and he's like, "Dude, Jerry never moves, man." So that was pretty cool. Needless to say, by the time the show was over, I was hooked. I was in love with the Grateful Dead. And I'd like to say that I haven't turned back. I never turned back since, but that isn't my story. My story would be, from that point on, I listened quite a bit to them. Everything else kind of went to the wayside, and I picked up like Infrared Roses and Grateful Dead, or Grateful-ded, however you want to say it, and which all these albums I've mentioned so far I love still, but and started to dabble deep, Working Man's Dead and American Beauty and all those. But again, prior to that concert, I had never even heard the band live. Like, I didn't know that there was this thing, that they were so different live. I didn't know people followed them around and any of that. So, yeah, I listened to them pretty religiously, and from that point, after the show, started to get some of the live shows, like 100 Year Hole and the Jerry Garcia double live album, and a few other shows, and just dug in. And we're talking pre-internet days, so I can't go online and see who Bob Weir is, or Jerry Garcia, or Phil Lesh, or any of that. There's no way for me to do it. So it was all on my own, because, again, I didn't really even hang out with Lee that much, and he was, much more of a partier than I was at the time, and, I didn't even know where he lived half the time, so I had no Deadhead friends. And so one night, a couple of my buddies came by, and we decided to experiment with LSD, and excuse me. So I took my very first trip, and by that point I had already just known that like the Grateful Dead was like this cool band to get high with to, and a little bit of the history where I knew, ooh, LSD, I like the Grateful Dead, they should combine. But there is an unfortunate story to that. One of my friends that was there is not a big Deadhead, doesn't absolutely love the band, but he likes them. But the other friend hated the Grateful Dead. Hated the Grateful Dead. Could not stand them. So as soon as I started playing it, he's complaining and everything. And he writes down, he's writing on a piece of paper. And I'm like, what is that? And he turns it to me and shows it to me. And it says in big letters, Grateful Dead Bite. Now, if any of you have experienced LSD, you know that certain things will stick in your memory for some reason. And unfortunately, because of that, I couldn't listen to them for a very, very, very long time. Few years. Quite a few years, actually. Well, a few years. We'll get to that. And yeah, so from maybe 93-ish, 94-ish on, I didn't listen to them until maybe 10 years later, give or take. So I will tell you that story and how that all happened if you are interested. But in the meantime, let me give you some history on the Grateful Dead and Touch of Grey. Okay, obviously, Touch of Grey is a 1987 single released by the band Beyond Description from their album In the Dark, which I have on vinyl. So, In the Dark. The music was composed, of course, by Jerry Garcia and legendary songwriter Robert Hunter. It was also released as a music video, the first one for the band. The song was first performed as an encore on September 15th, 1982 at the Capitol Theater in Landover, Maryland, and was finally released on the 1987 album In the Dark. The song reached the top 10 of Billboard's Hot 100 chart, peaking at number 9, and reached number 1 on the mainstream rock tracks chart. This is the only song by the band to do so on both charts. It was released as a single with My Brother Esau and later Throwing Stones, and has appeared on a number of albums, live shows, collections, everything. Now let me backtrack a little bit and say, I know that a lot of you out there that are into the Dead are probably like, oh, come on, Touch of Grey, but I'm sorry, this is the door, this is the song that opened the door on the bus for me and why I got on. And I will always love Touch of Grey. I always love when it comes on the radio. I always love when it comes on my Spotify mix. All of that. Always, always, always. So you're not going to convince me otherwise. But yeah. Also, the music video for Touch of Grey gained major airplay on MTV and featured a live performance of the band, first shown to be life-size skeleton marionettes dressed as the band, and some various comical happenings in that situation. And then finally, the skeletons turned into the band themselves. The video was directed by Gary Gutierrez, who had previously created the animation sequences for the Grateful Dead movie, which of course you do know Jerry was very much involved in. And it was filmed at Laguna, I'm not going to say this right, Laguna Seca Raceway after one of the band's concerts in May of 1987. The popularity of the single and its video helped introduce the Grateful Dead to a new group of fans, and resulting in the band gaining additional mainstream attention. I know some people are a little grumpy about that and like, oh, all these wannabes ruin the scene and whatever, but the Grateful Dead in this day and age would not quite be what they are without the hit that is Touch of Grey. So I still love the song, and obviously love the band. You guys know me at this point. So yeah, that is the first bit of history for the Groovy Room. Again, obviously part of my Grateful Dead collection is having it on vinyl. I also have it on CD and all that jazz. So just the beginning of many stories. If you guys want to hear these stories, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Stories from the Groovy Room on both Facebook and Instagram, and now on Blue Sky. You'll find me if you really care. Again, if there's anything you want to know about my personal journey as a Deadhead or a music fan or whatever, I'll be more than happy to answer those questions. If there's anything in the Groovy Room that you see in these videos, like posters, my turntable and vinyl, part of my vinyl collection is behind me, knickknacks on the shelf, and there's a couple shelves, books, all that kind of stuff. Any of that, if you have any questions or want to know about anything or just want a tour, please feel free to comment on this video or shoot me a message on one of those socials, because I would be more than happy to oblige. Another note about me is that this whole concept of Stories from the Groovy Room, which has kind of taken me a few years to really get into the swing of things, but the idea is that I want to create a positive, uplifting, good vibe kind of social media presence for deadheads and hippies and like-minded people, and I want it to be a free, open space. So why not just give this whole social media influencer nonsense a try? You know, why not? I got nothing better to do, and it's a creative outlet for me. Okay, I am rambling a little bit, but why not? So again, if you, I do thank you for watching this. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If you have any more details about the show, if there's anything I got wrong, if you want to see more, try to keep it positive and uplifting Again, I want to create a good peaceful space in this modern world for everyone. And all right, I guess that's it. So again, for about the millionth time, thanks for watching, and as always, stay grateful.